Deep Dive and Analysis.
Welcome to the deep dive analysis of Chapter 1 of Wuthering Heights, written by Emily Bronte and published in 1847. In this video, we won't just be recapping what happens, we'll be unpacking what Bronte is really doing, the choices she made, the meanings she buried, and why this opening chapter is one of the most carefully constructed in all of English literature.
Wuthering Heights opens not with its most famous characters, but with a stranger. Lockwood, a self-described misanthropist who has rented Thrushcross Grange, narrates everything we read. This is Emily Bronte's first and most important structural choice. She never lets us see the story directly. Everything is filtered through someone who doesn't understand what he's witnessing. Lockwood is educated, ironically detached, and fundamentally out of place in this world. And that gap between narrator and subject is the engine of the entire novel. Bronte uses him to hold the reader at a safe distance from Heathcliff's world while simultaneously creating a sense of dread and disorientation. We are tourists, just like Lockwood. And like him, we will slowly realize that the ordinary categories we use to understand people, host, guest, neighbor, family, simply don't apply here.
When Lockwood meets Heathcliff, he is immediately confused, and Bronte wants us to feel that confusion alongside him. Heathcliff looks like a gentleman. His bearing is proud, his clothes are fine. But his manner is hostile, and the social rituals that Lockwood expects, welcome, warmth, reciprocity, are entirely absent. Heathcliff is a man who has acquired the outward signs of class without any of its performance. This is not rudeness born of ignorance. It is deliberate refusal. Bronte is interrogating Victorian society's obsession with surfaces. What does it mean to be a gentleman if you behave like this? What does wealth actually signal? Heathcliff's character from the very first page is designed to make the reader question whether class is earned, inherited, or simply performed, and whether any of those answers are satisfying.
Bronte spends considerable time in Chapter 1 describing Wuthering Heights as a building, and none of that description is decorative. The name itself comes from the local dialect word for the atmospheric turbulence the house is exposed to. The carved date of 1500 and the name Hareton Earnshaw above the door signal deep, complicated history. The griffins and shameless little boys carved into the stone suggest something wild and pagan just beneath a veneer of civilization. Inside, the hall is built for function and survival, not comfort. This is a house that has never pretended to be welcoming. Bronte uses Gothic architecture as psychology. The house externalizes the inner life of its inhabitants. The storm-battered stone, the small windows, the dogs lurking in shadows, all of it tells us something about Heathcliff before he speaks a single word.
One of the most telling moments in Chapter 1 is the dog attack. Lockwood, left alone briefly, antagonizes the animals and is overwhelmed by them. A pack of dogs erupts around him in what should be a domestic interior. This scene is not comic relief. Bronte is showing us that the normal rules of civilized domestic life do not operate at Wuthering Heights. The boundary between the tamed and the wild, the inside and the outside, the human and the animal, all of it is unstable here. Heathcliff does not apologize when he returns. He is faintly amused. The housekeeper, Zillah, helps Lockwood. But there is no real sense of care or hospitality, only pragmatism. Bronte is establishing a world where the usual social contracts have been suspended, and where Lockwood, and by extension, the reader, cannot rely on familiar assumptions about safety or welcome.
By the end of Chapter 1, Bronte has done something remarkably disciplined. She has introduced enormous tension without explaining any of it. We have seen a hostile man in a decaying house surrounded by ill-tempered animals, narrated by someone who fundamentally doesn't understand what he's looking at. Who are the young woman and the sullen young man Lockwood glimpses? What is their relationship to Heathcliff? Why does everything in this house feel like the aftermath of something catastrophic? Bronte refuses to answer. This is intentional withholding, not vagueness. She is training the reader to distrust easy interpretations, to sit with ambiguity. Lockwood will keep misreading everything he sees, and so for a while will we. The novel's deepest subject, the question of what Heathcliff actually is, human or otherwise, victim or monster, is already present in Chapter 1, encoded in every detail, and deliberately left open.
End of the analysis.
Please like, comment, and subscribe.